the Gapology Guys podcast, your resource for winning leader behaviors that can help you achieve your greatest potential. And here's a question. Have you ever faced a challenging situation that required courage to lean into it and make the right decision? Or have a tough but needed conversation? Or has someone on your team face that similar situation and they needed some guidance? Well, tonight we'll be discussing 3 simple tips to help set you up for success when those situations arise, all looking through the lens of Gapology. So let's go ahead and get the show rolling with Mark Tinas. Hey Mark, how are you doing?
Good, Brian. How are you?
I'm good. I am really excited about tonight's podcast, like always. Another podcast week. We're doing these things sort of every other week now, and I think this topic is really going to make a big difference for a lot of people. I was thinking back on some of the things that we've learned, as we've been working with leaders out there, and what are some of those things that really make those A players, those A teams, and one of the biggest traits that we've discovered is that they're not afraid of facing situations, negative situations that they have, obstacles that are in the way. They have this sort of innate courage in their leadership. They're not afraid to lean into those situations and handle them. And so I thought this would be an interesting topic to explore with you, Mark, and, looking at everything through the Gapology lens here. So what do you think?
Well, I think that you and I learned that the characteristics of the top performing leaders was shockingly similar.
Yeah, totally.
Regardless of their background, regardless of geography, regardless of ethnicity, whatever, they shared similar traits, and that led them to, top performance. We called them the A group in Gapology. And we were very curious about how the A group, which would have been the top 10% performance group, what drove them, what caused them to be so successful. And so tonight we would be just talking about some of the traits that we saw in that group that leaders listening now could adopt in their own leadership, or could develop within their team and, again, achieve top performing results. The difference between the A group and the C group was the Grand Canyon, right?
Right. Yeah, that's right.
One side to the other.
Yeah.
And these were just, a few of those traits.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the revised book, which we've got coming out very soon, we're targeting an October release date. It's all in the hands of our publisher right now. He's got all that. But
the
in
15th anniversary edition.
Our 15th.
Not the revised book.
We were like little kids back then.
Yeah. It seems like 100 years ago.
Yeah, it
but
does.
It's the 15th anniversary edition.
Yeah, it does. And we've added in some new content, some revised content. We've added in just new insights to things. So stay tuned for that. But one of the things that we did talk about in there are these traits. This is one that's sort of it's a skill. It's something that can actually be built, and it's not something that I think people think about a lot, especially emerging leaders or experienced leaders that have teams of emerging leaders, those younger or inexperienced leaders, people new to that role. So I thought we'd kind of go through this, and we've got 3 big tips for you on this. So the first one, Mark, is establish a courageous leader identity. So that's our first tip. So what do you think on that one?
Well, for those of you out there that are listening to this, you may want to take notes. So we're only going through 3 things, and you may want to make note of them because you likely possess the skills to emulate and become this identity. So think about that. Yeah, so we found that the top performing leaders were courageous and that they had that as part of their identity. So think about that. Are there times when you're timid and go along? That may not be the best path. We
Mhm.
found that the courageous leaders were the most successful. Um, One of the big things here they did was create accountability. They were not fearful at all of creating accountability with their team. They set high standards, high expectations, and created accountability around that. And that was significant because it moved the entire team forward. And the team came to know that the result expectations weren't optional. The leader wasn't going to accept, yeah, we didn't make it because of this, this, and this. No, no, we're gonna achieve that. The other thing that was key here, which was unusual, but I don't think we were expecting it, is the courageous leaders modeled the behavior that they expected of their team. They didn't just expect it of their team, they expected it of themselves. And because they expected it of themselves, they modeled it. And it became evident, to the team. And I'll pause for a second. I got a couple more there. What do you think?
Yeah, no, no, I think you're right. They really know who they are. They're really confident. They have that viewpoint of themselves that, any sort of situation that arises, they're able to handle it because they've done so in the past. So they've sort of built this skill through practice, because competence that builds confidence, and that confidence is really important when we talk about courage.
Yeah. So write this down if you're taking notes. These courageous leaders across the board understood that the metrics they were trying to achieve were behavioral. We find that the underperforming leaders discount behavior. They make excuses. It was something else that caused us to miss the number. The top performing, the courageous leaders saw it as behavioral. They were very clear that the metrics were behavioral. And that takes courage. You have to look in the mirror quite a bit, but it's true. And if you've got the right metrics, they are behavioral. And that was huge. And because of that, they were always seeking to close performance gaps because they knew that performance gaps were behavioral, that if behavior changed, they could close the gaps. And it it was everything. It changed everything. It's where Gapology came from. Closing performance gaps, the gap in behavior changed everything. And these leaders see that, and they know that metrics are behavioral. They're not just a number on the page. We found consistently that the underperforming C group viewed metrics as metrics, and the A group viewed metrics as behavior. And because of that, they were able to move to results that the others couldn't even think of.
Hmm. Yeah, one of the things I want to just highlight that you said there that I thought was critical for people just to sort of understand is that looking in the mirror, that's the courage. Certainly it takes courage to have tough conversations and do those things. But looking in the mirror and understanding that those results, the behaviors are your behaviors as leaders. And that takes courage to be able to do that and to do it with an open mind.
Yeah, if there's a gap in your team, it's your gap.
Yeah. Yep.
It's your gap. So start there first,
Yep.
and then you'll close the other gaps in the team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
So
and
so
yeah.
the top performers were courageous. Period. Right, Brian?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Across the board.
Right.
They did not fear.
Mhm.
They it it was very consistent. Sorry.
Right.
What else
Oh,
were you saying?
no, I was just going to move to the next point. So, because you had talked about the team, and that's really the next point, is that courageous leaders, they incorporate a people first mindset. So, what's best for the team? What's best for the customer? What's best for the organization? Having that mindset that you need to be courageous on behalf of some of those groups, I think is an important piece.
Yeah, so the top performing leaders, because they understood that the results could be driven by behavior, they totally connected that. They really valued their team. They made the team feel valued, and a team that feels valued and feels, supported is at an engagement level that can't be achieved otherwise. And that drives it. And that builds these leaders built trust in their team. We mentioned earlier that they modeled the behavior they expected of their team. That builds trust. It's not just something we talk about, it's something we do. They tended to have purpose. They tended to be pretty clear on purpose, which connects and creates an engagement level within the team that can't be achieved in another way. If everyone knows how their role ties to the purpose and what we're going after, it's of great significance. And they drove the engagement level of their teams to the highest possible level. And because of that, they achieved results that others could not achieve. It wasn't one leader going after a metric, it was everyone going after the metric. And it it works. And we saw consistently in the underperforming leaders behavior of ignore. The leader would not model the behavior expected from the team. They wouldn't hold the team accountable. It didn't come together. But the A group understood that courageous leaders who put their team first and who totally exemplify in every way what they're going after,
Mhm.
achieves great results.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting that, low trust environments are really caused by this sort of, I guess, lack of this clear leadership, that mindset where you need to be this courageous leader and correct things when they're incorrect. If behaviors aren't right, owning it, stepping in, and fixing it, that really is a people first mindset by doing that, and that it does establish trust. Trust drives engagement. Engagement drives retention. It drives performance. It drives everything. So it does start with a courageous leader, I think.
Yeah, I worked for one of the leaders of I guess, the largest retailer in the US. And he showed me how the engagement score of the team reflected out in the results. And consistently in their engagement testing, the top performing groups had the highest engagement level. The team was engaged.
Yep.
And that means they believe in their leaders. And if you think about a courageous leader, people believe in that person. They believe in them. They know that they'll fight for them. They know that they'll support them. They know that they'll behave the way they expect the team to behave. There's
Mhm.
so many things that come together there. Who do you want to work for? That courageous leader is who you want to work for.
Yeah.
And a younger workforce, it changes their lives. That first or second or third job where they work for a courageous leader changes their lives and career and their direction and their understanding. And it's everything. When you look back at your career, you think of those leaders that influenced you the most. And those were the courageous leaders.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so interesting. It's not those ones that are just the nicest. And I think, especially with emerging leaders, just starting out their career, they want to be everyone's friend. They want to be nice. And they shy away from some of those conversations, those situations that do take courage. And I think they're doing a disservice to the team because those high performers on the team, they want clear leadership. They want a courageous leader. They crave that stuff. What you're going to get is everyone else that really doesn't care.
You look at the courageous leaders and how many people they have influenced in their career.
Hmm.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah.
Unbelievable. And how they've changed career paths and how they've changed, the life outcomes of people. The courageous leaders really stand out. And I'm proud of the courageous leaders I've worked for and reflect back on the fact that, they changed my life
Hmm.
in every respect. Not just financially. They changed my ability to help my kids understand what mattered. They changed my ability to lead other leaders. Think how many leaders you and I, Brian, have spoken to and influenced.
Yeah, yeah.
How many do you think? 10,000?
No, yeah, I don't know.
100,000?
Right.
Whatever the number.
Hmm.
A lot of that we learned from courageous leaders we work for.
Hmm. Right.
You did.
Yep.
I could name names, but I don't want to. I don't want to
Right.
put them out there. But courageous leaders matter. We need them. We're dependent upon them. We need more of them. And we need each of you listening to this to step up and do it
Hmm.
and be the success story.
Yep. Yeah. One thing I want to add there is sometimes people tend to think courage in what we're describing here means you really have to be tough and maybe a jerk sometimes. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about in a way that you provide very clear direction, you provide nurturing support when it's needed. And it's that balance of those two things, but being very clear and not shying away from challenging situations, but doing so in a way that's meaningful, where you develop your team, you help them grow and help them succeed and move on.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah. All right.
Agreed.
So, number three, our last tip is making the hard decisions with edge. So, edge is an acronym that we presented in Gapology. And I'll just go through the acronym real quick, Mark. So, the first E is energy. So, bringing passion, positivity to the moment, even when the topic's tough. Decisiveness is the D. So, not lingering in indecision. So, making the call, moving forward, and so forth. Greatness is the G, so aiming higher, even when it requires extra work, sacrifice, or change, if that's part of it. And then expectations is the last E, so clearly setting and reinforcing the behavioral and the result standards that drive the performance. So that's edge. So what do you think on that one, Mark?
Well, so we found edge in our Gapology research, and we were looking for a way to describe the A group, this top performing group that we learned so much from. We learned as much from the C group as the A group. And Gapology is about the gap between the C group and the A group. But when we went to describe the A group across the board, the A group leaders had an energy inside them that really motivated their team, and it came out in their team. The team was able to have that energy as well. Do you remember that, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah.
clear it was that the people around them had this same energy. You may just call it a passion, but it was contagious and it was about achieving results. And it was very evident and very clear. It doesn't mean they were necessarily charismatic. It meant that they went after things with an energy that influenced their team. And when you influence a team, what if you have 25 people working for you and suddenly 25 people have an energy that they didn't have before? The results change. So they were able to pass on this energy to their team, which created results, and the A group was the top 10% that were, in that top 10%. So that was the first thing we saw. Anything to add on that one?
Nothing really to add. I will say, when you're facing a hard decision, like oftentimes leaders need to face, and that courage is really that part of that. Edge is really key there. Having that energy, decisiveness, the greatness, setting that standard. All those pieces, I think, really describe what this courageous leader really is.
Yeah. So energy was the first thing. Decisiveness was second. They weren't scared to make the decision, to make the call. They didn't hesitate. They didn't care if it was popular with the organization. If they thought it was the right move, they were generally right, by the way, and they were decisive, and they were decisive in terms of people that couldn't make the team, that weren't up to the task. So they certainly had that, and that's part of being a great leader. You have to have a team that's willing to perform, but they clearly had energy and they were clearly decisive. They did not hesitate to make a decision. They weren't trying to be popular. They were trying to be incredibly effective and move the team forward, from a results standpoint.
Yeah. As you're saying that, I remember when I was younger, my career, and I was running a store, and I didn't have that confidence. And I remember saying to a guy once, I don't remember what we're even talking about, but I said, well, we could do this or this. And he just stared at me and he's like, oh, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, I'm not sure. And he's like, you need to make the decision. After that, I'm like, yeah, you're right. I need to step up. I need to make the decision. Why am I mean, I don't need to, I can ask for opinions and so forth. And
Yeah,
I'm always open to that. But when it comes down to being decisive, making that decision, someone has to make it.
yeah. And we all come to that realization in our leadership career.
Yep.
We weren't always decisive. It was
No,
something we
I
came to.
certainly wasn't. Yeah.
So the third piece of that was greatness, and that was that they expected greatness from themselves, from their team, from a results standpoint, and they were relentless around achieving it. They didn't achieve it all the time. They figured out how to achieve it and figured out the behaviors that would deliver that and went after it with just with a relentless, behavior, relentless pursuit, I guess,
Yep.
of greatness. It
Right.
wasn't optional to them. Greatness was something they were out to achieve. And so suddenly when we had E, D, and G, we knew that an E came next. It's suddenly like, wow.
Right.
Anyhow,
Right. Yeah. So the interesting thing, just back on the greatness piece, I think that other trait that we talk about is that eternal curiosity that winning leaders have. They're always curious about how do I get better? How do I take great and make it even greater? And keep aiming for higher and higher, pushing the bar. They're not just satisfied with winning one week and they're just satisfied with that. They want to continue to grow that. So I
well,
thought that was interesting.
you're bringing up something that's overlooked potentially here. They were not arrogant.
Right.
So they didn't assume that they had all the answers. They tried to find the best way and they listened to others and they would find someone who was outperforming the team and observe and listen to the behaviors that were creating that.
Hmm.
So they didn't always claim to have all the answers, but they were working to find those answers. So their greatness often came in the pursuit of greatness and in finding the answers that someone else had,
Yeah.
whether that be a competitor or whatever. They would go find it and then figure out how to replicate that.
Right. Yep. So the last E is expectations.
Yeah. So they were the A group, the best performing leaders were always clear on their expectations. They had metrics that measured the behavior, and they were clear that those metrics were achievable, and they knew that because they knew the top performing members of the team were achieving that, and they were able to really identify those behaviors and go after it. So their expectations were unwavering, they were clear, and they ensured that their team knew the expectations, were able to speak to the expectations, were able to model the expectations behaviorally, and that brought EDGE home to deliver the best results.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think when looking at edge and really all three of these things, being a courageous leader, it's sort of this steady, consistent approach. I think when you're, reflecting on how to put this into action for our viewers, think about your leadership rhythm. How are you crafting your leadership rhythm in a way that can really elevate your courage in your leadership? Grounded in purpose, define your identity and mindset, look at what those behaviors are, have this people first mindset overall, and use edge. I think there's all these different, elements that you can build into your leadership rhythm each week, but you need to look at it, review it regularly, and then model it for your team.
Yeah, rhythm was key.
Mm-hmm.
So rhythm communicates to the team what matters. And the top performing leaders had a very clear rhythm. So their weeks, their months would play out in a predictable fashion to where the team knew what was expected and what was coming next and what to do. And it did matter. So rhythm matters. So be predictable. As a leader, be predictable.
Yep. Yep. And if you want to learn more about leadership rhythm, we've got a podcast on that. So you can go back and check that one out too. But I think that's a good place to leave it, Mark. What do you think? Any last words?
Well, congrats on the new book coming out in a few weeks here, the 15th anniversary of Gapology.
Yep.
I thought you were 100 years old, but you're only 30, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
So well done. A lot of work went into it, and we just updated it to be part of the current world. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot in there that you can learn from. And the world has changed pretty significantly since the first version. Although Gapology will stand forever, we just added some stuff that will help you deliver it today.
Yep. New things that we've learned and so forth. So, all right. Well, everybody have a great week. Talk to you later, Mark.
You too, Brian. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. All right, that'll do it from here. For more information on Gapology, head on over to our website, gapology.org. Everyone have a fantastic week. We'll talk to you soon.